Okay, so have you ever, like, thought about just completely switching careers?
Yeah.
Like, ditching whatever you're doing and going back to school?
Oh, totally. I think about that all the time.
And, like, what if you could work at a university?
Ooh, that's the dream.
So that's what we're doing today. We're doing a deep dive into working at the University of Melbourne.
Nice.
We've got a whole bunch of their official materials, plus some stuff from a job listing site.
Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us.
We do. So to kick things off, this isn't just any university, right?
No, not at all. The University of Melbourne is consistently ranked among the best in the world.
Really?
Yep. And it's actually #1 in Australia.
Wow. Okay, so #1 in Australia, very impressive.
Right.
But just for context, what kind of university are we talking about here?
So it's a public research university founded way back in 1853.
Wow, that's old.
It is. The second oldest in Australia, actually. And the main campus is in Parkville,
Which is,
just north of Melbourne's city center.
gotcha. Okay, so we've got a really old, prestigious university.
Hmm.
What about the size? Big or small?
Oh, it's definitely on the larger side. Over 10,000 staff and over 54,000 students.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
It is, and over 20,000 of those students are international.
Really?
Yeah, from over 130 different countries.
That's incredible. So it must be a pretty diverse campus.
Oh, for sure. It's a very global environment.
That's so cool. Okay, so I'm curious, do the sources mention anything about how they attract all those international students and staff?
Yeah, definitely. They've got some really interesting employee benefits.
Like what?
Well, one thing that stood out to me was the discounted graduate courses for employees.
Oh, wow. Discounted courses. For
Yeah.
any course.
It seems like a pretty wide range.
Interesting.
They even offer a 25% discount on a bunch of other courses.
Okay, hold on. So they actually encourage their employees to, like, keep learning.
It seems that way. And they have specific programs, too, like leadership programs for women
That's awesome.
and tailored training for managers.
So they really prioritize professional development.
Definitely. It seems like they're really invested in helping their employees reach their full potential.
I love that. But what about work-life balance?
That's a good question. They emphasize flexible work arrangements
Oh, nice.
and on-site childcare.
Really? On-site childcare?
Yep, it all ties into their family-friendly policies.
Okay, I am definitely sold on that one. So they've got great benefits. They support professional development.
Mm-hmm.
What about the actual jobs? What kind of roles are we talking about?
Well, you've got your classic research positions, postdocs, lecturers,
Oh,
but then there's also all sorts of administrative roles, HR, tech support.
So basically everything.
Pretty much, it's a huge institution.
I'm kind of bummed there's no professional podcast listener role.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, maybe one day.
All right, so moving on. The sources also talk about the university's values.
Yeah, they highlight diversity, inclusion, respect, and reconciliation.
Okay, all good things. But are they just saying that, or are they actually doing something about it?
They've got some concrete initiatives in place.
Like, well, for one, they have an anti-racism action plan.
Interesting. What does that involve?
It acknowledges the historical context of racism and aims to address its legacy within the institution.
So they're not shying away from the tough stuff.
Nope. They're tackling it head on.
I like that. What else?
They're also super committed to Indigenous well-being.
Okay, how so?
They have a bunch of programs to support Indigenous students and staff and create a culturally safe environment.
That's amazing. And is there anything about, like, overall campus safety?
Yep. They have a safer community program.
Okay, and what does that do?
It aims to create a respectful and inclusive environment for everyone on campus.
So it sounds like they're really putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, they're not just talking about these values. They're actively putting programs and systems in place to support them.
Very cool.
Oh.
The job listing site also mentioned that they have multiple campuses, right?
That's right. It's not just Parkville. They have locations all over Melbourne
Yeah.
and even in regional Victoria.
Like where?
Places like South Bank, Burnley, Creswick, Werribee.
Hold on, multiple campuses. That's a lot to unpack.
It is. We might need a whole other deep dive just for that.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have?
Maybe we should let our listeners digest all this info before we hit them with the campuses.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, it is a lot to take in.
So out of everything we've talked about so far, what's standing out to you the most?
Honestly, the employee support is pretty amazing. Those professional development programs,
Right.
the work-life balance.
It really seems like they actually care about their employees.
It does, yeah. It feels like they're really invested in building a supportive and inclusive environment.
And it's not just talk. They actually have concrete initiatives.
Exactly, like the Anti-Racism Action Plan, the Indigenous Wellbeing Programs, the Safer Community
Okay,
Program.
really important stuff. But okay, back to those multiple campuses for a second.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you tell me a bit more about that?
Sure. So think about it from a researcher's perspective. You could be based at the main campus in Parkville, working with people from all over the world. But then you might also need to use specialized facilities.
Yeah, okay, I see.
And some of those facilities might be located at one of their regional campuses, like
Like
Creswick.
Creswick.
It's known for its forestry and ecological research.
Oh, cool. So it's not just about having different buildings, it's about having different research environments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It gives researchers so much flexibility.
You could be studying urban ecosystems one day
Mm-hmm.
and then out in the field the next.
Exactly.
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
Right.
So we've got a top-ranked university, amazing support for employees,
Yeah.
a real commitment to diversity and inclusion, a global outlook.
Mm-hmm.
But what does it all actually mean for someone who's thinking about working there?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
I think what's really interesting is how all of this, the values, the initiatives, it all shapes the culture of the university.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just about attracting talent,
Yeah.
it's about attracting the right kind of talent.
People who share those values.
Exactly. People who are passionate about those things.
And then those people just reinforce those values even more.
Right. It creates a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Like take work-life balance, for example.
Right.
They offer flexible work arrangements and on-site childcare.
Yeah.
So they're naturally going to attract people who value those things.
Right.
And then those people contribute to a more balanced and supportive work culture.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. The values attract the right people.
Yeah.
And then the people reinforce the values.
It's pretty cool when you think about it like that.
It is. And it applies to diversity and inclusion, too.
Oh, yeah. How so?
By creating a genuinely inclusive environment, they attract a more diverse range of applicants.
From all different backgrounds and perspective.
Exactly. And that leads to a richer, more vibrant academic community.
It's like they're not just building a university, they're building a community.
A cult.
Yeah. And that culture influences the kind of research they do, how they teach, the impact they have on the world.
Imagine all those diverse perspectives coming together
Yeah.
in a supportive environment.
Think of the amazing ideas and collaborations that could come out of that.
Exactly. It's really exciting to think about.
You're right. It really shows that a university is so much more than just buildings and classrooms.
Absolutely. It's an ecosystem.
An ecosystem of ideas, values, aspirations.
And the University of Melbourne is clearly cultivating that ecosystem very carefully.
I'm honestly so impressed. I'm ready to apply.
Uh-huh.
But seriously, this has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
I think it's time to wrap things up and let our listeners continue exploring on their own. All right, so we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
We have.
What would you say is like the next step for them if they're interested in UniMelb?
I think the first thing is to really think about what stood out to them the most from what we talked about.
Yeah, totally. Because there is a lot.
It's easy to get overwhelmed. So having a clear focus can really help.
Okay, so let's say they have a focus. What should they do next?
Well, the UniMelb website is a great place to start.
Yep.
You can look at their course catalogs, read about the faculty, even check out their research publications.
To get a sense of the kind of work they're doing.
Exactly.
And what if they want like a more personal perspective?
Then you could reach out to current students or alumni.
Oh, good idea. How would they do that?
Through LinkedIn, maybe, or other online platforms.
Okay, so that's for online resources. But what if someone wants to actually experience UniMelb?
Nothing beats a campus visit.
Yeah, you're right.
You can walk around, see the buildings, get a feel for the atmosphere.
And maybe even attend a lecture or something.
Exactly. And plus, you get to explore Melbourne.
Which is always a win. Okay, so we've talked about action steps, resources.
Okay.
Any final thoughts for our listeners as they embark on their UniMelb journey?
Well, we talked a lot about their commitment to diversity and inclusion.
We did.
So here's something to think about. How do you think that commitment will evolve in the future?
Oh, that's a good one.
How will it shape the research they do, the way they teach,
Yeah.
the impact they have on the world?
It's not just about where they are now.
Right.
It's about where they're going.
Exactly. And how those values will continue to shape the institution.
It's pretty inspiring to think about.
It is. And that's what makes a place like the University of Melbourne so fascinating.
It's not just about learning facts.
Right.
It's about engaging with ideas that could potentially change the world.
Well said. So to our listeners,
Yeah.
keep that question in mind as you learn more about UniMelb.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be one of the people shaping that future.
It's definitely possible. All right, that's it for today's deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone.